The scene begins outside a mosque in the Bronx, where people are gathered not for a festival, not for a prayer service alone, but for a political statement. The atmosphere carries both quiet tension and a collective resolve. In front of the building, with brick walls catching the midday light, stands a candidate who is no longer just another name on the ballot, but a figure shaping a public conversation many have avoided. Zohran Mamdani, a 34-year-old Democratic candidate running for mayor of New York, has chosen this location deliberately. The mosque is more than a background. It is a reminder of the people whose identities and dignity are being debated in the political arena. He steps forward, not in a celebratory moment, but in response to something deeply troubling. Just the day before, remarks circulated widely across the city, comments that were not whispered, comments that were not caught accidentally on a hot mic. These were statements said openly, publicly, and with laughter. He recounts them plainly. Yesterday, Andrew Cuomo laughed and agreed when a radio host said that I would cheer another 9/11. Yesterday, Eric Adams said that we can't let our city become Europe. He repeats the words slowly, not to ignite outrage, but to underline their seriousness. The weight of those comments does not fall on Mamdani alone. Instead, he frames them as symptomatic of something larger, something woven into New York's political discourse and public assumptions. He continues, "It is whether we are willing to say goodbye to anti-Muslim sentiment that has grown so endemic in our city that when we hear it, we know not whether the statement does not merely accuse political opponents, it challenges the city to reflect on what has become normalized. Many people listening already understand the implication. The rhetoric did not start yesterday, and it likely will not end today. It has been building. To some, it is invisible and less directly named. To others, it is a daily reality." Mamdani's presence here is not accidental. He knows the symbolism of his identity in the American political landscape, a Muslim, a son of immigrants, a representative of neighborhoods where people speak dozens of languages, where faith and culture are essential anchors. For some, this identity is a source of pride and representation. For others, it is used as a political target. His message is clear. What is happening is not simply the product of one election cycle. It is not about one candidate being attacked. It is about what has become politically acceptable. The suggestion that a Muslim candidate cheering tragedy is not just inflammatory. It reinforces a narrative that Muslims are outsiders, threats, or inherently disloyal. It points to a deeply rooted suspicion that has existed in American public life for decades, intensified after September 11th, and rarely confronted in mainstream campaigns. As Mamdani speaks, supporters and community members listen closely. Some nod in agreement. Others stand with their arms crossed, absorbing the language. The situation is not explosive. It is reflective. People know these ideas are not new. They have existed on talk radio segments, in national security debates, in airport screenings, in landlord interactions, in school hallways. Islamophobia in New York does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it appears in a comment about a headscarf, sometimes in a suspicious glance on the subway, sometimes in the silence of institutions that refuse to acknowledge bias. But during election seasons, it becomes amplified, sharpened, and weaponized. Mamdani is not here to deny political difference. He is not here to call for unity in the abstract. His speech is about accountability. He is saying that the language used by politicians matters, that it shapes public perception and policy, that it influences how people feel about their neighbours, their co-workers, the person sitting next to them in a classroom, on a bus, at a park bench. The candidate references New York's long history of immigration and diversity, a city where communities from every world region share blocks, streets, and workplaces. Yet, he points out, the city that celebrates multiculturalism in tourism brochures and campaign slogans is often the same city that tolerates discriminatory remarks in local politics. He challenges those who believe Islamophobia exists only on the far right. He is explicit that it is present in both major political parties. The invocation of Europe in the comment mentioned earlier suggests a fear that Muslim communities, if they grow in visibility or confidence, are inherently destabilizing, a fear that cultural difference is a threat. This type of rhetoric may seem subtle to some. To others, it is immediately recognizable. The idea that there is a right amount of Muslim presence and anything beyond it is a problem. These are statements that have shaped immigration laws, zoning decisions, policing strategies, and public funding priorities. However, Mamdani does not focus exclusively on critique. he also emphasizes what is possible. He speaks about a city where Muslim residents are not seen as political talking points, but as citizens shaping the fabric of the city. He envisions a city where religious identity does not dictate whether someone is viewed with trust or suspicion, where a Muslim mayoral candidate is evaluated on their policies, their leadership, and their ideas, not their identity. He explains that the current moment is not simply about winning an election. It is about confronting a political culture that has gone unexamined for too long. The normalization of anti-Muslim rhetoric has made discrimination appear routine, even orderly. It has allowed offensive suggestions to pass as political strategy rather than prejudice. Listeners observe that Mamdani does not raise his voice. He does not attempt to overwhelm the moment emotionally. Instead, he uses calm, measured language. He insists that clarity is more powerful than volume. He knows that many people hearing his words have been waiting for someone to say aloud what they have felt privately. What he describes resonates beyond the immediate speech. Across the United States, Muslim Americans have experienced similar rhetoric in campaigns, whether in congressional races, school board elections, or community forums. His comments echo national debates about identity, belonging, and who is allowed to speak for the future of the country. Mamdani uses this moment to speak to those who feel disillusioned with politics, those who believe that calling out discrimination is futile, those who have grown cynical because change feels slow. He reminds them that public discourse does not shift on its own. It shifts when people push it, question it, interrupt it. He ends with a call to insist that New York live up to its own reputation. The city that claims to welcome all must work to make that welcome real. The city that prides itself on resilience must refuse to normalize division. The city that calls itself a sanctuary must be one in practice, not only in declaration. The message he leaves is that campaigns do not merely compete for votes. They also define what becomes acceptable in public conversation. If Islamophobia is left unchallenged, it continues to shape policy, culture, and personal interactions. If it is confronted publicly and unapologetically, the city can move towards something better, something more honest and more just. As the crowd begins to disperse, the mosque remains, standing as it has stood through many waves of public debate, media narratives, and political seasons. For the people connected to it, the building is not symbolic, it is home, a home that has absorbed decades of fear, resilience, devotion, and hope. And today, it stands as a place where the demand for dignity was spoken clearly and without hesitation. This story is not just about a candidate or an election. It is about a city deciding what kind of future it wants to claim.